Hi, I'm Kelly Vaughn, and this is Inside Indy. Today on Inside Indy, we're going to be talking about sex trafficking. And I know you're probably thinking, didn't you just talk about that 2 months ago or 3 months ago? Yes, we did. And you know what? We're going to talk about it again because this is scary. It's scary what's going on out there. It's crazy, and we're looking for answers, solutions. And I think the more we keep it out in the forefront, the bigger the impact on our community and hopefully on the world. And here in the studio with us, and she is definitely having an impact on this particular issue and beyond, is Kathy Huff. And you are a board member of You Can Free Us.
Correct.
Right? And then you're also president of Fetch Consulting.
Correct.
Here in Central Indiana. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Before we get into sex trafficking, because I want to talk about this Uber and Lyft story that just came out of Atlanta. Tell us about you and your role in fighting sex trafficking, sex slavery in our state and our country.
Yeah, you know, you bring up a good point. You're trying to like say, okay, sex trafficking, sex slavery, what is that? It's truly just talking about all modern slavery. And how I got involved with You Can Free Us is I've enjoyed a great life of total freedom. And when I started really doing the research in this area, and I got connected with the founder of You Can Free Us, Sujo John, started really looking at the numbers, started looking back in history, and I was a bit of a history buff of certain time periods in U.S. history, and of course one being the whole slave trade. You know, the 350 years of basically the transatlantic slave trade. And if you were to look at all 350 years worth and how many human beings were trafficked from the African continent over to North and South America, right now today, there's actually more people in a form of modern slavery, whether that's forced labor or forced sex trafficking. Currently, there's more today than all combined in those 350 years.
Wow. Now, when you say today, what, in the last 10 years, in the last, what?
In the last 10 years, the number is actually doubled compared to the previous 10 years. So unfortunately, the numbers are really spinning out of control. So I know as we kind of talked a little bit, even before we started the interview, it's kind of this whole idea of what is driving it and what do those numbers look like and how do you define it? But when you really look at it, this is not a gray area of somebody actively going out there and saying, this is what I want to do. I want to, you know, be a sex worker. I am willingly going out there and doing something. This is truly people that are in modern slavery. I like to use the word slavery because I think it does harken back to a day of understanding where we recognize what slavery was when in our own country and what we fought over in the Civil War. Right. I think it helps us understand that this is now going on again, that it is a similar battle. It is something that we actually have to face. Okay.
And of course, I can imagine some African Americans who are watching would say, yes, they're we can see the numbers, but the experiences might be a little bit different because of the severity of the treatment, the beatings, the lynchings. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but I could see somebody saying there's some similarities, but yet very different. And I'm playing devil's advocate here.
I understand. I think for me, it's the fact that, you know, with anybody that's ever been touched by slavery, you can't really, you know, because I can't speak for them and their experience, or even, you know, people that had past experiences with this in their own families. However, I think it's good for us to kind of recognize that many times when you hear of even, and I even saw it last night on a popular TV show, American tourists going abroad into Thailand or India or Southeastern Asian countries, and they just actively go into the red light districts thinking it's a form of entertainment, not realizing that they might be watching a 14-year-old girl that was sold by her own family. And this girl is being beaten every single day and kept in a cage. And it is truly the epitome of the worst situation going on. And that's for millions of people around the world.
Wow. Okay. Because I guess I think about here in the United States, we know it's happening, and I hadn't gotten a visual in my mind about people being caged. Mm-hmm. But because that's the question, I'm sure a lot of people think or question when someone is enslaved, how does that happen in this day and age when at some point you would be outside, you should be able to walk away, you should be able to get away. Mm-hmm. But so what's going on there? How they're getting entrapped and why they can't get away if they're not caged?
Exactly. And I think a good couple examples that, we kind of briefly talked about there that are recent stories. You have one out of Canada. If somebody wants to Google it, they can kind of Google the latest news in Canada. There was a big sex trafficking sting that basically went down, and they captured over 300 people. 300 people. What's interesting about that is if you look at all the pictures of the 300 people, it is truly the men that were involved that were the pimps. They're also connected to organized crime and gang activity. And so it's not like you're looking at a bunch of pictures of women who are in prostitution. It's truly the men that's abusing them. And then if you look at some of the individual stories of the women that were trying to get out of this ring, to your point saying, well, why couldn't they walk away? Because they actually weren't in a cage. Well, many of them were coerced into it at a very young age for the promise for a home, clothing, food. So these are girls that are in a very precarious situation. They may not have family, they may be homeless, they may be hooked on drugs, but they're all very young. So they're coerced into initially with promises. And then at a certain point, you have to think to yourself as a woman, if you are continually raped and assaulted and taken advantage of, a couple things are going to happen. You're not going to think you're worthwhile. Mm-hmm. So you're not going to think you're worthy of something better to walk away to. Also, you're being threatened with your life. So you're scared to death. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then to top that off, you've seen that everybody around you that has purportedly said they loved you at some point has broken your trust. So this idea of I'm surrounded by all of these men and sometimes even women that are abusing and using me, for me to run to the police and ask for help, what makes me think that the police aren't going to also use and abuse me and take advantage? So then there's a little bit, police officers always say in these sting operations, they have to go deep undercover to gain the trust. They say it takes a long time to get the trust of some of these women because they have been abused so often and their trust has been misplaced so many times. Wow.
So I guess then if the target oftentimes are women who are vulnerable, like as you said, young people, runaways, and I think the masses, and it's not that we don't care about them, but a lot of people think, oh, it's going to be my kid who's on the college campus. Is that happening in terms of women who are not necessarily in a vulnerable position being kidnapped and taken?
I think there's that.
Or students, the kid at the bus stop.
Exactly, because to me, vulnerable can also mean the college girl that finds herself by herself and slightly drunk and calling an Uber or a Lyft and then not double checking the plates and getting in a car that's actually not the Uber or Lyft driver. She's vulnerable because she's been drinking. Or because she's alone and not with friends. So to me, vulnerable can run a pretty wide gamut.
So at that moment,
it even includes me, as I got to find out just, about 3-4 weeks ago. I was at the Keystone Fashion Mall here in Indianapolis. So, a nice higher end location. Oh, yeah. And I found myself in my vehicle starting to pull into a parking space, and there was two, they looked like they might have been teenagers, they could have been in their 20s, two girls that were videotaping me pulling in, and then they walked right up to my vehicle the moment I went into park and started, knocking on my window and, oh, excuse me, I just want to check out your vehicle more. They even asked me how much it cost, very much in my personal space. Needless to say, I asked some questions. I was pointing them in the direction of certain things. Either way, I quickly noticed that they were lying about certain things. And for me, it was the rude awakening of how much even more vigilant I need to be, because these girls could have been involved in something where they may have even been trapped in a certain bad situation, and they were going to ensnare others.
Right.
So it's just little things like that where I go, you have to be so much more vigilant and aware of your surroundings.
So what do you think they were up to? Did you ever figure it out? Or
Honestly, because of certain things they were saying, my gut tells me that they were either potentially trying to see if they could steal something, or kind of, target my vehicle, or it could have also been seeing kind of my body language, and if there was a way to either lift something off me, or potentially, once more, like I said, so many of these things occur in groups and in rings. They could have, maybe somebody else was directing them to do something to me or my vehicle. Once more, it was just a matter of me trying to keep my distance as much as possible, not really have my back to them. And I even started videotaping certain things. But it was things that they were saying that, they made some comment about how they always wanted to drive a vehicle like mine. I told them where they could go and do a test drive. And they said, oh, they laughed at each other and said, well, we probably can't even do that. And I said, oh, you don't have a license? And they insinuated they didn't. But then 5 minutes later, I watched them go to a vehicle and get into it.
Oh, okay.
So they're just little things that made me go, this does not add up, and it doesn't make sense.
Right. You mentioned body language, and I think that's really critical, especially when you're, say, for example, coming in and out of a mall or a store. And what are your thoughts on that in terms of how one carries themselves when you're out? As part of the defensive mechanism.
Yeah, and I've taken a couple self-defense classes. Now, granted, it was years ago. It was probably, I don't want to date myself, but it was probably about 25 plus years ago. And my mom was good about making sure I got into those classes before I went to college and out into the real world. I look at those classes now and I go, I think if I were to take a class today, it would probably be even more updated and more savvy, because part of those classes I always remember is you really do have to kind of hold your head up high. You have to always be looking around to make it clear that, you are looking around. You are aware of your surroundings. Do not be on your cell phone. Don't be looking down. Make it clear that you are aware of your surroundings. And don't turn your back to certain situations. But honestly, I look back at that situation and I even critiqued myself, and I said, I think the number one mistake I made is that I parked my car. I saw them videotaping me and my gut said something's a little off. I should have just put it into reverse and got out.
Left, right, yeah.
And then the second mistake is just immediately get security involved. Find security, even if it takes you an extra 5-10 minutes, track them down, figure out where they are, and point them out. Little things like that of going, it's not only being extra aware and vigilant, but then also figuring out what are those next steps you can do to kind of point it out and get somebody else involved.
Okay, wow. As far as the slave trade goes, or the sex trafficking, especially when it comes to young people, what is going on there? I think that was what intrigued me about the story out of Canada, because you've got all these perpetrators, and particularly, especially men. There are women involved in the business side of it. I don't know that they're targeting children, but what is the fascination? Have you looked at that in terms of what is the fascination with children? Why does a grown human being want to be with a child in the first place? That's what we're trying to figure that one out.
I myself have read, some psychology papers on it, and
I knew you had an answer. I knew you had an answer.
I've done that kind of research, but then I kind of keep going back to the fact that we know for a fact that history repeats itself, and if you learn from history, you can stop something from repeating itself. And so I look at that and I go, whether it's for sex or for forced labor or whatever that is, the biggest driving factor in this whole industry in and of itself is money. And where that demand is coming from is truly from a a sickness almost of not really looking at life as something sacred. So for instance, if you're looking at a child as this is something that, I'm looking at them as an object or something that has any attachment to like sex or sexual arousement, you're not looking at that child as sacred, or that childhood itself is sacred, a line you absolutely do not cross. And when you also look at just the stats worldwide, recently a large study came out and the United States was seen as third worst in the world for trafficking. And I kind of thought to myself, well, you don't see it out in the streets. You're not looking around going, oh my gosh, there's this huge red light district and there's these cages and all these images that really are occurring in many other countries. You don't see it. And that's because I think we're in the whole world where the U.S. is placed is we're actually driving the demand. We're the one that's having this huge demand. And to me, the question then remains, why would we have such a huge demand? And I look at it and I go, well, one, we probably are not really looking at life as sacred as we used to. Two, we have such a drive to kind of see things with, we don't have this right and wrong concept. A lot of people don't believe in absolute truth anymore, and that there is something right and wrong to things. And so therefore, things have become very gray. You can actually even see major psychology papers where they're starting to shift the conversation to that it may not be wrong for an adult and child to have
I've read
sex.
something like that. Yeah, and I guess, and I understand that in terms of the what you're saying in the realm of sex trafficking. We've only got about a minute left, but I guess, and not just the whole the psychology of that. An adult is even attracted to a child, even if they never even acted on it. And I understand that those who do or they deal in pornography are feeding the sex trafficking deal. I get that. But there are some that are not externally active. But the psychology of why do they feel that way? And we know even when they go to prison, a lot of times they don't make it because those in prison will, even like the serial killer is like, you don't mess with a kid, so anyway,
exactly.
we're out of time. I gotta have you back. She's gonna be a regular, so be looking for Kathy again because they're telling me I gotta stop. But if people have questions or to contact you, contact information.
Yes, definitely. If you look up You Can Free Us, it's youcanfree.us. So check out the website. You can definitely reach out through there. And then as well as, obviously, I'll give you my contact information. You can post that too.
Okay, sounds good to me. Kathy Huff, thanks so much for joining us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, on Inside Indy. And we'll be back with more on Inside Indy after this.
So we were walking to school.
I started thinking about lunch. Mom packed me turkey and cheese.
She's
I really want
smart.
cheese pizza.
Sometimes her mind wanders.
We should have a sleepover.
I remember saying, Laura?
I think I heard Mom say something.
The sign says don't walk.
Sometimes it's so overwhelming.
I really hope she doesn't have
I really
another
hope I
bad
don't
day
have another bad day at
today.
school today.
When you can see learning and attention issues from their side, you can be on their side. Go to understood.org, a free online resource with support and tools to help your child thrive.
When I was your age, I was just like you, fascinated by stars. But now I get to search for life in the universe. And who knows, maybe life is looking for us too.
So we're like aliens to them?
Yeah. Does anyone want to be a scientist now?
I do.
Awesome. We need more girls in STEM.
Maybe we can find aliens.
It's a beautiful day out here. Sunny today with light breezes, giving way to clouds in the afternoon. We could see some light precipitation to moderate precipitation later on, followed by powerful storm-like conditions. 90 miles per hour winds are expected. Authorities are asking everyone, stay indoors. Come on, that's it. Let's go.
we're back here on Inside Indy, and it's a little chilly. No, wait, it's just cold outside, okay? And if you're like me, you can feel the draft coming in the house, or maybe perhaps around the windows or around the doors. And so now's the time to take action to keep warm this winter. And here to help us do that is Tanya Hollingsworth, and you are the Weatherization Director for Community Action of Greater Indianapolis, right?
Yes, I am.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Community Action of Greater Indianapolis, I know, serves Central Indiana and beyond.
Yes.
And in addressing the needs of a lot of citizens, including their need to keep warm, right?
Yes.
So tell us about this weatherization program that CAGI offers.
CAGI has a weatherization program that is designed to keep your home warmer in the winter and cooler in the summer, and to get a greater, to help lower the utility cost on your bills.
Amen to that. Okay, I can totally relate to that. So, so now, what do you offer in terms of helping those in the community stay warm?
Well, in regards to the weatherization program, we offer new furnaces, furnace repair, furnace tune-ups.
Really?
Yes, water heater replacement, water heater tune-ups, adding insulation, air infiltration, duct repair, things like that. Air sealing, things to make the home more energy efficient.
Okay. Now, I suspect that there's certain qualifications for those things. It's not everybody can just call and get one.
No. No.
Darn, Tanya. So who qualifies for those items? That's awesome.
The low income families
at
the 200% poverty level.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
So now, how would they take advantage of that in the sense of, do they call you? Do they have to fill out a questionnaire? How do you qualify?
Well, they can call Community Action 317-396-1800 and just ask for the weatherization program, and we'll get the call. We currently have a waiting list, but it's not very long. And then what happens is the admin, she'll do a phone interview to ask questions. Do you have roof leaks, plumbing problems? Do you have mold issues, moisture issues? It's just like an over-the-phone interview so that we can kind of know what we're facing before the auditor comes out to do the assessment of your home. And if so, we jot those items down. We still come out and do the assessment because it may be some small things that we can help take care of before we just say no. But he, gets out to the home, he does his assessment, and then he writes up the work order. And what the work order is, it's just pertaining to the things that the weatherization program will do to, make your home more energy efficient.
Okay, so they come out and assess. So the person who's calling might think it's one thing, and they come out and say, you need this instead, or you need a couple of things, perhaps.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And then, so sometimes where you might think you need a new furnace, you might just need to have that one repaired.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
exactly.
Yeah. So give us an example of a typical scenario when somebody calls and what happens, or maybe something that maybe touched your heart with a particular client.
Okay. One thing that did touch my heart is we had a deaf client call in, and her son was deaf as well. And so they lived in a mobile home. We were able to go out and help this family out. They hadn't had heat in a couple of years.
Wow.
And they were just in a situation, and it was great that we can go out and help this family because she was very, very appreciative. She was grateful. She was thankful. Even the child was happy. So just instances like that are the best.
Right.
Whenever we can help anyone to stay warmer during the winter time, it's great.
Okay. So we've got just about a minute left. Then the show's really yours. Let people out there who are watching, what's your message to them, those who are in need?
Those that are in need, please contact us. Give us a call. We're always there to answer your calls, and we will help you as much as we possibly can. That's what our weatherization program is all about. We take pride in helping, and we just want to help, families stay warm. That's what the program is for.
Yeah, And some of those things you mentioned, they're not cheap. So,
No, no.
Wow, that is very awesome that that's provided, even a furnace. So amen to that. Well, we appreciate
Yes.
you coming in.
Oh, thank you.
Tanya Hollingsworth, Weatherization Director for Community Action of Greater Indianapolis. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
On Inside Indy. And thank you for joining us. I'm Kelly Vaughn. We'll see you next time. Stay warm. Bye-bye.
What would you do if you woke up one morning to find your street blocked with a house in the middle of it coming your way? Hi, I'm Bill Foster, founder and executive director of Habitat for Missions. Our organization purchases houses and then develops them with volunteer workmen. We then sell the house and give 90% of the profit away to support missions around the world. Just recently, Habitat for Missions supported church planting missionaries in the Czech Republic, building a vocational school in Uganda, providing a safe place for girls in India, partnering with an overseas mission organization and homeless shelter in Indianapolis. And that house moving towards us in the street, when the project is complete, will help at-risk teens in South Bend, Indiana. There's so much more we can do with your help. Whether it's moving a house in South Bend, renovating an old mansion in Georgetown, Kentucky, or sprucing up a home in St. Petersburg, Florida, Habitat for Missions is investing in lives. One house, one flip at a time.
Marie, you have prediabetes.
Prediabetes? I don't have time to eat right or exercise. I'm a busy mom.
Oh, you're a busy mom.
Yeah.
This is great news. Busy moms never get prediabetes.
Wait, what?
Let me just... Yeah, this is all the people at risk for prediabetes, and way over here, busy moms.